Let me tell you something most people won't say out loud. When someone walks away from a person who truly loved them, it doesn't hit them right away. First, they feel free, confident, like they made the right choice. But time has a funny way of revealing the truth. Because when the silence sets in, when the text stops, when the world moves on and you stop chasing, that's when the regret begins. And it doesn't come all at once. It shows up in flashes, in memories, in moments he doesn't expect. And trust me, if you were the real thing, he will regret it every single day. Here's why. He lost the one person who genuinely cared. And that's not something you realize in the middle of the breakup, when emotions are high and egos are louder than truth. No, this kind of realization creeps in quietly. It happens in the still moments when life slows down and the distractions fade. At first, he might feel relief. He tells himself he's made the right call, that he needs space, freedom, clarity. Maybe he even convinces himself you were too much, too emotional, too intense, too available. But here's the truth. What he saw as too much was simply love offered without conditions. And very few people ever give that kind of love. You weren't perfect, no one is, but you cared in a way that was real. You remembered the little things, you checked in, you listened, even when he didn't have the words. You stood by him, even on the days when he didn't know how to show up for you. You brought him comfort, reassurance, a sense that someone was truly in his corner. And not because he earned it, but because you chose to be. That's the thing about genuine care. It's not loud or dramatic. It's quiet, consistent, and deeply grounding. And when it's gone, its absence echoes. He's going to look back and realize that what you gave wasn't ordinary. It wasn't performative or transactional. You weren't loving him to get something back. You loved him because that's who you are. That's what he didn't understand in the moment. He thought he had time. He thought someone like you would always be there, ready to pick up the pieces, to forgive, to fight for him. But even the strongest hearts grow tired of being unappreciated. What he won't forget are the moments you tried, the texts you sent to check in when he went quiet, the nights you stayed up just to talk because he was stressed, the way you made sure he never felt alone, even if you were struggling too. He'll remember your patience, how you gave him space when he needed it, but never made him feel abandoned, how you accepted his flaws without using them against him. Those moments weren't small and they weren't forgettable. They were the quiet proof of how deeply you cared. And they'll replay in his mind, especially when he realizes not everyone will show up like that. Because eventually, he'll meet people who want him, but only the best parts of him. People who love the fun, confident version of him, but don't know how to deal with his low days, his doubts, his fears. And in those moments, he'll miss the way you held space for all of him, not just the easy parts. He'll realize that your care wasn't convenient, it was unconditional. And that he may never say it out loud. Pride has a way of keeping people quiet. But deep down, he'll feel the loss of someone who loved him in a way that asked for nothing and gave everything. He'll scroll past your name, hover over old photos, maybe even type out a message and never send it. Not because he doesn't care, but because he knows what he let go of. And no words will feel big enough to touch that kind of regret. That's the weight of losing someone who genuinely cared. It's not just about missing the person, it's about realizing you were loved fully and you didn't know how to hold it when you had it. You gave him emotional safety, and now that it's gone, he'll feel the void in ways he never expected. At the time, he might not have known how important it was. Emotional safety isn't loud. It's not flashy or dramatic. It's subtle. It's the calm in the storm. The quiet reassurance that no matter what's going on outside, he had someone who accepted him exactly as he was. And that kind of space, that kind of presence, it doesn't just disappear without leaving an emptiness behind. When he had you, he had someone he could be real with. He didn't have to be perfect. He didn't have to perform. He could drop the mask and exhale. He could talk about things he didn't share with anyone else. His fears, his doubts, the parts of himself that he didn't always understand. And when he did, you didn't judge him, you didn't try to fix him, you just listened. You held space. That made him feel safe, even if he never had the words for it. The truth is, most people don't even know how much they value emotional safety until it's no longer there. At first, he might have thought the relationship was getting too comfortable, too routine. He might have confused peace with boredom. He might have wanted excitement, something new, something different. But excitement doesn't hold you at your worst. It doesn't anchor you when life gets overwhelming. It doesn't sit with you in silence when you're struggling to find the words. You did that. You were that for him. And without you, he's going to start noticing the difference. He'll talk to people who only want surface-level conversation. He'll date people who only know how to connect when things are fun and light, but disappear when things get real. He'll laugh, sure, but he won't feel safe. He'll be surrounded, maybe even admired, but he won't feel held. That's when it'll hit him. He didn't just lose a girlfriend or a partner. He lost a sense of home. He'll start to remember the small things that felt easy with you. The way you always knew when something was off, even when he said, "I'm fine." The way you didn't push him to open up, but made it safe when he did. The way you never made him feel like he was too much or not enough. That kind of comfort, the emotional freedom to just be, is incredibly rare. And he let it go without realizing it was one of the most valuable things he'd ever had. There's a difference between being seen and being understood. You gave him both. You didn't just hear his words, you heard what he wasn't saying. You picked up on the energy, the silences, the heaviness he tried to hide. And instead of making him feel weak for struggling, you made him feel human. That doesn't happen in every relationship. Most people are so focused on being heard themselves that they don't know how to truly hear someone else. But you did. You did it consistently without needing recognition or reward. Eventually, he'll realize how much lighter his world felt when he had that kind of emotional safety. He'll realize that connection isn't just about chemistry. It's about feeling seen, accepted, and safe with someone, even on the messy days. And that's what he lost. Not just a partner who cared, but a partner who understood, who created a space where he didn't have to try so hard to be okay all the time. That void, it won't be easy to fill. Because while people may come and go, that sense of security you brought into his life will leave a quiet ache that no one else quite knows how to ease. And he'll carry that with him, sometimes consciously, often not, but always there, like something important he once had and didn't know how to protect. You were patient in ways that most people wouldn't be. You gave grace where others would have given up. You stood by him through his uncertainty, his indecision, his self-sabotage, and you did it without making him feel like a burden. That's the part he won't find again so easily. Because patience, real patience, isn't just about waiting. It's about choosing to stay connected, to stay loving, even when things aren't easy or convenient. You had standards, yes, you knew what you deserved, but you also understood that people are human, that love isn't about perfection, it's about growth, and you were willing to grow with him. He might not have recognized the strength in that at the time. He might have thought your willingness to stay through the rough patches meant you'd always be there, that your forgiveness was unlimited, that your loyalty was guaranteed. But what he didn't understand is that your patience wasn't weakness, it was love in its highest form. And eventually, he's going to run into the reality of what dating looks like without that kind of depth. He'll meet people who demand perfection up front, who won't tolerate his messiness, his mood swings, or his need to process things slowly. They'll expect him to get it together immediately, and when he can't, they'll leave, quickly, without apology. That's when he'll start comparing, maybe not consciously, maybe not out loud, but he will. He'll think back to the way you handled things, how you gave him room to figure himself out without walking away, how you didn't threaten to leave every time he made a mistake, how you challenged him when he needed it but never made him feel like he had to earn your love. And he'll realize that what you offered was rare. Not everyone has that kind of emotional maturity. Not everyone sticks around when things get uncomfortable. You didn't lower your standards to keep him. You held onto your boundaries, but you met him with compassion. That's the difference. You weren't passive. You didn't accept less than you deserved. But you gave him time to become the version of himself he said he wanted to be. You saw who he could be, not just who he was in the moment. And that belief, that quiet, steady belief in someone, that's not something people stumble across every day. You'll remember that, especially when others give up on him faster than he's used to. Especially when he starts to notice that not everyone is willing to stay during the in-between. He may have thought he needed something more exciting or someone who didn't challenge him in the ways you did. Maybe he got caught up in the idea that relationships should be easy all the time. But when the novelty wears off and the truth starts to settle in, he'll begin to realize what you really brought to the table. A kind of loyalty that didn't flinch in the face of difficulty. A kind of love that didn't walk away when things got hard. That's the kind of presence that leaves a mark, quietly but permanently. And no matter how much time passes or how many people come and go, there will be moments where he remembers that you didn't just stick around when it was fun. You stayed when it was hard, when he was uncertain, when he was becoming. That kind of patience isn't just remembered, it's felt. Long after the relationship ends, long after the silence starts, long after you've stopped looking back. He mistook your softness for simplicity, and that was his biggest mistake. He saw the way you loved gently, how you gave without asking for anything in return, and assumed that meant you were easy to figure out, predictable, safe. He didn't realize that beneath your calm demeanor was a woman with depth, intelligence, and layers he never took the time to truly explore. He thought he had you all figured out, like you were just another kind, sweet person who would always be there, always forgive, always love him no matter what. But what he failed to see is that your softness wasn't naivety, it was a choice. You chose to be kind, even when you could have shut down. You chose to be understanding, even when he gave you every reason not to be. You didn't raise your voice or play games because you didn't need to. You had a quiet confidence about you, one that came from knowing who you were and what you brought to the table. But he missed that. He was looking for something louder, something flashier, and he underestimated the power of the woman standing right in front of him. People often confuse calm with boring. They think that someone who's consistent must be lacking something, passion, fire, complexity, but you weren't lacking anything. In fact, you had more depth than most people he'll ever meet. You understood things he never said. You picked up on the energy behind his words. You saw past the surface and connected with the parts of him he kept hidden from everyone else. That's not something you learn to do overnight. That's emotional intelligence, compassion, wisdom. And he'll realize too late that you weren't simple, you were rare. Now that you're gone, he'll meet people who are harder, colder, more performative. People who know how to act interested but don't know how to truly care. People who bring drama, not depth. And in those moments, when the connection feels shallow or transactional, he'll think about you. He'll remember how easy it felt to be around you, not because you were easy, but because you made him feel safe. You made life feel lighter. You were the calm in his chaos, the person who saw through his walls without making him feel exposed. There's a certain kind of strength in softness that most people don't understand until it's gone. It's the kind of strength that says, I don't need to prove anything. I know who I am. That was you. You didn't fight for attention. You didn't need to be the loudest in the room. You loved quietly, steadily, and deeply. And that love was rooted in something real. He didn't see it then. He thought he needed something more exciting, but what he'll come to understand is that there's nothing more challenging or beautiful than a woman who chooses to love you with depth without losing herself. You never asked for more than what was fair. You weren't demanding. You weren't controlling, but you held a quiet standard, and the day he broke that trust, you walked away, not with bitterness, but with grace. And that moment will haunt him, because that's when he'll realize just how layered you really were, just how much he missed because he didn't look past the surface. He'll think about all the conversations he didn't start, the questions he never asked, the parts of you he never got to know. And maybe, just maybe, he'll start to understand that the softness he took for granted was never weakness. It was power wrapped in peace. It was grace wrapped in strength. It was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of love, wrapped in someone he thought he had figured out. And by the time he realizes it, you'll be gone, thriving, evolving, unfolding in ways he never took the time to witness. You believed in him in a way he didn't even believe in himself. And that's something he won't easily forget. When he was unsure, you were steady. When he doubted his path, his worth, or his ability to get through what life was throwing at him, you were there, offering support without judgment, reminding him of his strength when he couldn't see it. That kind of belief The unconditional kind is not common, and now that it's gone, the absence of it will feel louder than the presence ever did. It's one thing to be loved when you're confident and doing well. When everything is going right and you feel on top of the world, it's easy to attract admiration. But it's something else entirely to be loved when you're at your lowest, when you're struggling, when you're lost, when you feel like you have nothing to offer. That's when the truest kind of love reveals itself. You stood by him during those moments. You didn't just love the version of him he showed to the world. You loved the version he tried to hide. You saw the cracks, the insecurities, the confusion, and you stayed. He may not have understood at the time just how rare that is. He may have taken your emotional investment for granted, assuming it would always be there. He may have thought your belief in him was a given, something he didn't need to protect or reciprocate. But eventually he'll realize just how much of a gift it was to be believed in without needing to perform for it. Because the world doesn't offer that kind of support often. People are quick to judge, to expect, to demand results. But you made him feel like he was enough, even when he hadn't proved anything. You gave him space to grow, to fail, to try again, without shaming him for the process. And here's what's going to happen. One day, when life feels heavy again, when he's unsure, when he's failing to meet the expectations of others, he's going to remember how it felt to have you in his corner. He's going to crave that voice that reminded him he was capable, that presence that made him feel like he could breathe, even when everything else felt suffocating. He'll hear compliments from others, but they won't land the same way, because your words weren't flattery. They came from knowing him deeply, from seeing the potential behind the fear, from seeing the man behind the masks. He may look for that in others, hoping to recreate the feeling of being truly seen and supported, but most people won't stay for the hard parts. Most won't have the patience or emotional depth to see through the noise. They'll like him when he's successful, when he's charming, when he's doing well, but when the cracks show, they'll pull away. They'll get tired. They'll ask him to figure it out without offering a hand. And that's when the memory of you will sting the most. Because you didn't just support him, you lifted him. Quietly, consistently. You reminded him of his power, not because he earned it, but because you saw it. And now with that belief gone, he'll feel something missing. Maybe he won't be able to name it at first. Maybe he'll chalk it up to stress or timing, but deep down he'll know. No one else made him feel like you did. And that kind of loss, it lingers. Not because you made him dependent, but because you were the mirror that showed him his best self, even when he couldn't see it on his own. Well, he stays stuck. You'll grow, and that will haunt him in ways he never anticipated. Right now, he might think he's moving forward, like walking away from the relationship means walking towards something better. He may even feel a sense of control, like he made a decision that puts him on the right path. But time has a way of revealing who's really moving on and who's just running in circles. And the truth is, growth isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, steady, and powerful. It shows up in how you carry yourself, in what you no longer tolerate, in the peace you find within yourself after chaos. That kind of evolution doesn't just go unnoticed. It leaves an impact, especially on the person who underestimated it. You aren't the same person he left. You're becoming more whole, more grounded, more certain of your worth. You've outgrown the version of you that waited to be chosen, that gave second and third chances, hoping he'd finally see your value. You've stopped shrinking yourself just to make him feel big. And while he's stuck replaying old patterns, revisiting the same fears, attracting the same type of shallow connection over and over again, you're stepping into something higher, no longer begging to be understood. You're surrounding yourself with people who already do. And the more you grow, the more obvious it becomes what he lost. Not just a good partner, not just someone loyal and loving, but someone who was willing to grow with him. You weren't just offering love, you were offering evolution, a future, a deeper version of life that most people never reach because they're too busy avoiding the discomfort that real growth requires. But you faced that discomfort. You sat in it, you cried through it, processed it, healed from it. And now you're becoming someone even you hadn't fully met yet. He'll see it in subtle ways at first, maybe a post, a mutual friend's update, a passing conversation. He'll hear about what you're doing, new goals, new boundaries, new energy. and it'll sting. Not because you're doing well, but because he's still stuck. Emotionally, mentally, maybe even spiritually. He's still in the same place where he left you. He hasn't done the work. He hasn't faced himself. And you've transformed, not out of revenge, not to prove anything to him, but because you chose yourself. And that choice will echo louder than anything you could have said when he walked away. There's a special kind of regret that comes from watching someone you left behind become everything you were afraid to grow into yourself. That's what he'll feel. Regret not just for losing you, but for realizing he held back both of you. He'll remember how you pushed him to be better, how you believed in more, how you craved depth when he was still living on the surface. And eventually he'll understand you weren't asking for too much. You were just asking for the wrong person. He'll try to recreate that connection with someone else, but it won't work. Because true connection can't be faked and growth can't be copied. It has to be earned, lived, embodied. And by the time he's ready to match what you were offering, you'll be long past that chapter. Not bitter, not angry, just beyond it. He'll watch you thrive in spaces he never had the courage to enter. He'll see you loved by someone who gets it, who meets you where you are without needing to be convinced. And in those moments, he won't just miss you, he'll miss who he could have become if he had grown with you instead of letting you go. So let him walk, let him believe, for now, that he made the right choice. Because time has a way of revealing what ego tries to hide. You were not just another relationship. You were not replaceable. You were the calm in his chaos, the quiet belief in his storm, the love he didn't know how to receive, but will spend years trying to find again. He didn't just lose you, he lost the safety, the patience, the growth, the softness and the strength that came with being loved by you. And one day, whether it's months or years from now, it'll hit him in a quiet moment or in the arms of someone who doesn't understand him like you did. He'll realize he let go of something extraordinary. But by then, you won't be waiting. You'll be thriving, glowing, becoming more of who you were always meant to be. Not because he left, but because you finally made room for something and someone that chooses you fully every single day. And that's the part he'll regret the most.